The ratings agencies have also warned the US credit rating could be downgraded even if the debt ceiling is raised. Dean Baker is co-director of the Center for Economic and Policy Research here in Washington. I asked him what's motivating the rating agencies.
Obviously, if the debt ceiling isn't raised, there is a serious crisis. The U.S. cannot pay its debt. But assuming that does happen, it's very hard to see how there's any issue about the credibility, the integrity of U.S. debt long into the future under almost any scenario. So why would the credit rating agencies be making warnings about downgrade when there's no plausible scenario in which debt would not be repaid 100%?
But these are the agencies, though, who we rely upon to tell us whether the debt will be repaid, though. So, I mean, again, help us understand what's going on.
Well, as I say, it's an open question. I look at that and I just go, what would be the set of events in the world where 5, 10, 15 years out, the U.S. government would not be able to repay its debt? Now, you could envision kind of a crazy scenario with the debt ceiling, but apart from that, and I should also point out, whatever cuts you have today, whatever you put in, that says nothing about crazy scenarios with debt ceilings. I don't know how you predict that. So I have to wonder what their motives are. I don't believe they could look at the books and say that they have to downgrade U.S. debt. That makes no sense.
But does that mean then that they are no longer simply trying to create what, as far an impartial service, an impartial economic service, but they are actually trying to change and shape economic policy itself?
Well, they're having that effect. What their intention is, you know, I can't really say. Their track record has certainly been abysmal. I mean, they rated hundreds of billions of dollars of junk mortgages or mortgage-backed securities as investment grade during the housing bubble. They have an atrocious record that way. They've downgraded other countries. They downgraded Japan's debt. They can still borrow money at 1.5% for 10 years. So their track record is really abysmal. What their intentions are, anyone could guess.
But they do have actual, I mean, real heft in the U.S. economy. There are automatic procedures in place if they were to downgrade America's credit rating.
You have a number of funds, state and local pension funds, private funds, that cannot invest in assets that are below AAA. So you would have a case where people would have to sell U.S. Treasury bonds in many cases. Now, odds are there'd be other investors that would jump in. So I don't think there'd be any big crisis. This is a huge market. So if you had pension funds saying they don't want U.S. Treasuries, there's plenty of other people around the world that would likely jump in. The impact on interest rates, I think, would be very small.
So given all we know about the credit rating agency, when we see a headline saying Standard & Poor's warns downgrade will happen if, or Moody's or whomever, I mean, what should we think? What advice would you give us as lay people, though, as we're looking at this economic?
Well, I could just tell you my own suspicions that they're doing some, for whatever reason, they have a motive other than looking at the books to issue a warning like that. I just think it has nothing to do with looking at the books and assessing the creditworthiness of the U.S.
But why are they still taken so seriously here in Washington then by the president and Republicans and Democrats?
I think that you have a lot of people in both parties that have an agenda to do things like cut Social Security, cut Medicare, incredibly unpopular steps, that the only way they'll ever be able to do that is that if they convince people there's no alternative. And if they say these credit rating agencies are saying we have to do it, then that gives them an excuse.
Dean Baker.